Let me be the first to say before I start this review, this is truly one of the most unhinged movies I have ever watched. We're going to get into it. Hello, and welcome to Mikey's Film Corner. I'm your host, Mikey. Today, we're going to be talking about Blue Moon. Not the song, the movie, Blue Moon. Spoilers ahead for the movie we're going to talk about today. Let me be the first to say, if you expected this to just be a straightforward biographical drama, you would be sorely mistaken. This movie centers around Lorenz Hart, one half of the Rogers and Hart duo who used to write many, and I mean many, musical plays all across musical theater for like decades. This would be maybe like in the early 1900s, somewhere around that time in the early 20th century. So seeing a biopic about one half of that duo was already an interesting idea. Richard Linklater, who worked last year on Nouvelle Vague, also worked on this movie around that same time, and you could tell like this was like 2025 was his year. He did a lot, and honestly, his vision as a director surprisingly works. Now, Lorenz Hart in this movie is played by Ethan Hawke, who I know from The Black Phone, and as a portrayal of an actual human being, it's solid, and I can see why people wanted him to go for an Oscar nomination or several other nominations at award ceremonies. I can see why he was nominated. However, what blew my mind wasn't his acting. What blew my mind was how vulgar this movie goes. Um, Essentially, the whole story is Lorenz Hart is just depressed. He's trying to like overcome it, but he's drinking his ass off because in the opening of Oklahoma, one other half of that former duo Rogers and Hart, Richard Rogers, he is now working with Oscar Hammerstein, who, if you probably know him, they did an adaptation of Cinderella. They did many other stuff. Oklahoma was their biggest musical ever. And it might be one of the biggest musicals in theater ever. Now, the way Lorenz Hart is portrayed is basically an alcoholic, essentially. Like a really depressed alcoholic, but he's not showing that depressed side of him. And it's an interesting idea to see someone like Ethan Hawke play an actual human being to a certain degree. But what's so interesting to me is this script is just so vulgar. My God. I could see why this was labeled as a comedy. I was seeing lists of like the top 10 comedies of 2025, and this was one of the movies on there. And at first, I didn't believe it. When it got on Netflix, shout out Netflix, not sponsored, I was surprised. I was laughing. I was intrigued by the story. Margaret Qualley, I don't know how to say her name. I apologize. She did great in this like protege role she was playing. She was playing like this 20-year-old college student who was a protege or like a muse essentially to Lorenz Hart. And Richard Rogers in this movie is just like, I don't want anything to do with you. I want you out of my life. Essentially, he's trying to shadow him away, like pushing him away. I don't think shadow was the word I was looking for, but you get what I mean. It is kind of an emotional movie at times, but for the most part, essentially maybe 1/8 of the movie isn't even in the bar. The rest of the movie is in a bar. And then also the opening of the film is literally showing Lorenz Hart lying on a curbside in Manhattan in the rain in the early mid 1940s. Now, sadly, he passed away at the age of 48 due to complications from pneumonia. And it's sad the way he went out. It's really sad when you read like all this other stuff about him. And his story is very interesting. So to put it in film was already kind of like a big risk to begin with. But it surprisingly worked. Not just as a drama, it worked strangely better as a comedy. I don't understand it. Every joke just hit. The writing worked. The editing was decent. I love the set of the bar itself. I love the costumes, especially. They looked phenomenal. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to give this like an 8 out of 10. I think that it surprised me how, like, entranced I was. I was surprised at how much I was laughing from this. Some of the dialogue worked, and there was some stuff that didn't work great, but then the direction's kind of But Richard Linklater's vision works so well for a movie like this that I was pleasantly surprised. So I'm going to give it like a solid 8 out of 10. And I got nothing else to say. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to smash the like button and smash that subscribe button. And I will see you guys in the next video. Deuces.